Back again tonight, a viewer request video. I will be rehousing a Poecilotheria regalis from a medium arboreal enclosure to a large one. Starting off, I will show you the tools that I need. Obviously, the animal and the existing enclosure, a larger enclosure. There are two main types of tarantulas. Terrestrial, meaning ground-dwelling, which need a short, wide container, or arboreal, meaning tree-dwelling, which needs a slender, taller container. I like to use these containers. Obviously, this is a used one. I have lots of animals, and when one grows up, I'll recycle that container for another animal. Obviously, you need to have quite a few holes for ventilation. I like to use a solder gun. Get it hot. It just makes nice smooth holes, and since it burns away the edges, you don't have any sharp edges that you would have from using a sharp cutting tool. I personally like a soldering gun. You need a hide for an arboreal animal. Something long and thin like this piece of cork bark is ideal. I use nets, spray bottles. Vermiculite does wick moisture, and first time that you use it, you need to get it pretty wet. And I actually use a bulb syringe and a dish of water, a spray bottle to mist the whole enclosure, and as I've said 1.5 million times, I like to use vermiculite as my substrate. I feel like it adapts to any species. It's practical for burrowers who use webbing. I use it for, I think, every species of spider that I keep. Now that I've shown you guys the tools, I'm going to set up the enclosure, and lastly, I will transfer the animal. Even though this animal does not touch the bottom of the enclosure very often, I like to use a nice layer of it. That way it can disperse the moisture throughout the week. You do need to be really careful starting off and monitor the temperature carefully. On the other hand, you don't want it so wet that it's going to drip moisture. You want your substrate to stay together. If you are rehousing a little sling, what I actually do is just roll a piece of paper towel up and just let it wick the moisture out of your substrate. But I can show you guys that in a sling video at another time. Nice damp substrate, clean piece of cork, wedge it in there nicely. Gonna mist nice and heavy for the first time around. Now for the fun part, moving my regalis. I do like to use a larger container. I put both of these containers inside a larger container. Gives me just a minute of extra time in case my animal does make a break for it, which does happen frequently. Usually a transfer is fairly uneventful. I like for this to be as stress-free and quiet a process as possible. There we go. Voila. Rehousing complete. Once the animal is rehoused, I take the initial label from the old enclosure, which I just label with Scotch tape. I like to transfer the label with the animal. That way I can keep track of the breeder and the year of birth if it was known. That was rehousing of Poecilotheria regalis. Slightly more challenging species. Hope you guys like this. See you next time.